All right, I'm joined by Craig Pendleton. Craig is running for Maine State Senate. We are a little bit more than a week away from Election Day. How you doing, Craig?
So far, so good. I feel pretty confident that we've covered a lot of the bases.
Yep. So you are running in District 31, is that what it is?
District
31. Yeah.
Buxton and Saco.
Yep. So you are running against, is it one or two people? Because you're running as an independent, correct?
Right, yep, there's no Republican candidate, and the incumbent is Donna Bailey. She's a Democrat.
Nice. So what made you decide to get into the race?
Well, in 2020, I tried as a replacement candidate very late in the race. Dana Connors, who used to run the Maine State Chamber, and a couple other people reached out to me and said, we really need somebody to run. I had always been unenrolled, and they asked me to run as a Republican.
Yeah.
And so I did that. It was the only way to access some campaign funds. It was too late for clean elections. And of course, 2020, it was COVID. I had some conflict at work. And so I really didn't campaign. And we held our own. We did pretty well. I think I lost by 2,000 votes, which for not campaigning at all, I thought was pretty reasonable. And when it came around this time, I had retired from my work and I had more free time, and I thought I could give it a real go this time and really campaign. And I've always enjoyed solving problems. And so, thinking that in the fishing industry, public transportation, chamber of commerce, all the things that I've done in my life, I just like it. And so I said, what the heck, I'm going to try it again.
So how late did you get in 2020?
Oh
Was
God,
it
it was
like
like October.
Okay, that's
It was at least October, and I didn't get out of work till like 6 o'clock at night, and I'm not coming to your house with a mask on. I just I didn't feel comfortable. Yeah,
the deck was stacked against you. It sounds like and it's
yeah.
great that you were able to step in, at least have a name on the ballot, and come within 2,000 votes. That's obviously that's pretty impressive. But this time around, you get a chance to do things a little bit differently. So when did you start your campaign? Like I don't even know what it's like to run for Maine elected office. Is this like a long campaign cycle, or is it something that starts around the summertime and gears up towards the November election?
Well, I actually started sometime in April. I started asking some questions about how to get on the ballot. I actually had some people reach out to me again. Interesting. Again, I've most always been unenrolled. And so I wasn't 100% comfortable running as a Republican. I don't really feel as though I fit into a category. And so I had some people reach out again. And one person in particular said that, at his law firm in Portland, where he was an advocate, they were having multiple conversations about the time was right to have some unenrolled independent people get elected. They felt that, people felt like the parties had gone to the extremes and, the Maine people were still in the middle. And so I decided to do that. And I was like, the only way I can do it is to do it my way and do it, as an independent. And so I filled out all the paperwork. And in April, you can start to qualify for the clean elections, which is, taxpayer funded elections. And I had to collect 175 $5 contributions. And that ended up being kind of funny. I was like, I have a big family. I have a big circle of friends. I'm like, 175, that's a piece of cake.
Yeah.
Well, after I hit the family and the extended family and the extended circle of friends, I had like 42.
All right, if you've been enjoying the podcast, I wanted to let you know that I am a residential loan officer with CMG Home Loans. If you or anyone you know is looking to buy a home or refinance, please let me know and I'd be happy to help. My contact information is in the description below. Back to the podcast.
And so,
was there ever any Craig, we're friends, but I'm a Democrat, kind of thing? Was it ever like that, or people are just like, whatever, $5, just to help you out?
I haven't run into that, which I did expect. I did expect some pushback. But I guess, clean elections has been around for a while now. And just because you contribute to clean elections doesn't mean you have to vote for the person. I think there's a lot of understanding that if there's a competitive race with two people at least, people have a choice. And so by contributing to clean elections, I had a chance to get on the ballot and, have some money to work with.
So clean elections just means they give you a certain amount of money once you get those $175 $5 contributions. What does that look like? Is that like enough to fund your whole campaign?
Yeah, it was. The first contribution is $25,000.
Yeah.
And then for every 45 more you get, it's another like $6,600.
Yeah.
And so I ended up with like $31,000 to work with. And, I'm pretty frugal with it. And I have really kind of made decisions based on what I thought was going to reach the most people. And so I didn't spend all the money.
Yeah. That's probably smart, probably a reflection of how you handle yourself if elected. So about your agenda, if you don't mind talking about some of those things. The first thing on your list when people go to your website, and your website is pendletonformaine.com. It talks about helping local businesses and creating jobs. Is that a priority for you?
Absolutely. So, when I ran the Chamber of Commerce, I would say the first thing that became apparent to me was it was the Biddeford-Saco Chamber of Commerce and Industry, which I thought was really interesting. I hadn't seen that before. And so I started in the industrial parks and introduced myself. And, by the end of the first couple days, I wasn't sure why any manufacturer or, major company belonged to the chamber, because we didn't do anything for them. And so I sat down with Derek Volk, the people at, it used to be Precision Screw, they changed their name, Joe Moorehead. I just started talking to them and saying, what are you running up against? What can the chamber do to try to, make you feel like you should be part of the chamber? And regulatory burden on a small business was one of the first things that always comes up. And second of all was they needed a workforce. And so, I couldn't do much about the regulatory burden in my position, but I could help with the workforce. And so we started having meetings. We brought Career Center. We brought the Center of Technology over at Biddeford High School. Just anybody who we thought could get together. And a really good example was that company in Saco called Huddig. They made fabricated doors. And they put a major expansion on, and they needed like 20 some odd workers. And they didn't even get an application. And so we brought everybody from the governor's office all the way down to the local economy. And, within a few months, they got enough people to hire. So, I think that's a great opportunity. Workforce is still, restaurants are closing. Our schools open early. People go back to college early. And so we need to find people who are around to work. I think another thing that we saw that we were able to work on was flexible schedules. I mean, you must be in a situation where, during COVID, we all work from home. Would you pass up a really good employee, man or woman, who had childcare duties? Maybe could get in at 10 and need to leave by 2 or 3. People were adapting to that and finding ways of getting good employees in the door. I think that's important.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I talk about it in my job all the time. Like, one of the main things is the flexibility to be able to pick up and drop off kids, attend sporting events and all that stuff. And it's a reality that if you want to keep good employees, that you have to play ball when it comes to that stuff. How important is investing in technical and vocational things and areas?
It's interesting. So, Thornton Academy graduate, you were either in the business program or the college program. Yeah. And, when I was 9 years old, I started lobstering. And so all the way through high school, I knew I wanted to be a commercial fisherman. In the college program, I wasn't allowed to take accounting. Thought it was really important that I knew how to take care of my own business. And, I clearly remember my guidance counselor, everybody went to Orono. How come you don't want to go to Orono? What the hell do you want to be a commercial fisherman for? Those kinds of things. And so even back then, that was 1978. Back then, there was this, you were tainted of sorts if you wanted to do a blue collar job, a trade. And I just thought it was wrong. And so, I went to this great 2-year program at the University of Rhode Island. I came home, I named any job on the waterfront that I wanted. I learned the skills I needed. And so shortly after I started staying home more. I used to be gone 10 to 12 days at a time, so I didn't do much.
Good to see. Wow.
Yeah. I didn't do much socializing on land.
Yeah.
But, as my career shifted and I had kids and stuff, I got associated with the Biddeford Center of Technology. And I just thought it was such a great program. Paul Atbono does a great job over there. Jeremy Ray just expanded it. They're doing hospitality. And
you may know I'm on the school committee in Biddeford. So it's an exciting time for that stuff, especially with the Center of Technology. We actually have a grand opening on Tuesday, the 29th, the day after this podcast comes out. So it's a big deal. We're something very proud of. All the communities around us benefit.
Yeah, it's all you have to do is have a water pipe break in your house or, some electrical thing go and call somebody and hopefully you can get somebody and they're going to make good money off you because, there aren't enough people in the trades. And so, we have always been a fix-it economy in Maine. I've always believed that. Being on a boat all my life, when you're 100 miles offshore, you don't run home for a $5 pot. You find ways of fixing things. And, when the fishing industry started getting squeezed with the regulatory burdens, you didn't hear a whole lot about it because guys were going ashore and they could be welders and they could be electricians. They could be, they could build houses, very talented people. And they just, they went into the economy someplace else.
When did you get out of the fishing industry? So was it 20 years ago? 20-something years ago?
I sold my boat in 2008.
Yeah.
And I went back to college. I had some money in my pocket and had some free time. And Husson University took all my credits from the University of Rhode Island 30 years before and transferred them all. So I took 17 months to finish my business degree. And
were you in classes with 20-year-olds, or are you doing this online or night? Yeah, that's awesome.
I was the second oldest.
That's so cool.
It was really interesting. So we're in a math class, and we take a break. And this 20-odd-year-old guy comes over beside me and goes, "Dude, I haven't done this stuff in like 3 years." I'm like, "Dude, I haven't done it in 30."
That's awesome, though. I mean, it's kind of a testament. Like, you can do that. You can go back. You can reinvent yourself. You can have another chapter in your life. I mean, multiple chapters at this point. So it's really cool to hear. I had no idea that you went back to college like that. I saw that you were the National Fisherman Magazine Highliner of the Year in 2008. What's that all? What's that all about?
It's probably my second proudest honor.
Really?
There was the. Can't show you right here, but I've received a lot of awards over the years, and mostly it was because I was free to stick my neck out and open my mouth and fight and argue. But National Fisherman was a national magazine, and every year they picked 2 or 3 people in the fishing industry that made a significant difference. And it was really interesting that in 2008, I was actually considering of getting out of the fishery. I had downsized. I owned a 54-foot steel dragger for 20 plus years. And I downsized one more time thinking that, we'd had some good rules in place. We could go shrimping. I was doing research and I thought if I just downsized one more time. So I got a 45-foot boat, brought it to Camp Ellis, saved all kinds of money, dock fees, and wasn't going 100 miles offshore, and the insurance was less, and that kind of stuff. And I had a crew member, captain, that had been with me for 12 years. And the downsizing just was a little bit too small for him. He liked staying out, 1, 2, 3 days at a time. And so I was running a big fishing organization, Northwest Atlantic Marine Alliance. And now I was facing having to run my boat. And so, you end up doing neither one very well because they both require all your attention. And, it was a really weird transition, but.
Do you think is it your time on the water that led to, like, one of the other agenda items you have is just protecting our natural resources? Is that time outside the water, like, give you appreciation of what Maine has to offer when it comes to that?
Yeah, going back to, I graduated the first time in 1980. I worked on a 108-foot boat out of Portland, Maine. And it was the first time I had really been exposed to rules that were made someplace else by some other people that didn't make sense. And I was only 20 years old. And so I started asking questions. And, for example, if somebody told you you couldn't catch a scallop any smaller than this, you need enforcement. Maybe you need to change the fishing gear. Maybe you need to get out of some areas where there's little scallops. And we had none of that. We never saw enforcement.
So you just expected to self-regulate, but a lot of people probably didn't.
Yeah. And I just started when I started asking questions, and the next thing I know, I'm going to some council meetings, and it was mostly driven by, I just couldn't make sense of the rules. For example, fishermen know when fish come in to spawn, when fish are going to be in certain places. Yet, anytime we brought that kind of thing to the table, it couldn't be plugged into a computer model as an easy answer. Yeah. And so, we killed more fish than we ever saved under a lot of the rules. And I couldn't stand it. So, that's what we created Northwest Atlantic Marine Alliance, because us in the environmental community were always at odds. And I woke up one day and I'm like, hold on. We both want the same thing. We both want more fish in the water. It's the government over here that's making the rules that don't make any sense. And so, I actually sucked up all my pride and went over and met with the environmental community and said, my goal is to seize the environmental ethic from you. The fishing industry needs that. So
it's almost like way back then, there's aspects of everything you're talking about that really apply to what you're looking to do now in the Maine State Senate, right? Like, you've had negotiations and dealing with meetings and finding middle ground on different things, right? Would you think that your history would apply directly to the state Senate role?
Yeah. Perfect example, the offshore wind program right now. Some faraway corporation is working with our federal government, and they picked areas in the Gulf of Maine where they think it would, a wind farm would be great. Well, I've been to those places. I fished in those places. I know what the bottom's like on those places. I know what the weather gets like in those places. And so I have a leg up. They're not going to be able to sneak anything by me. And when they tell you there's no fish there, well, you know what? I have records that show you that, there were fish there, and we caught them.
Interesting.
Yeah. And so,
So are there no wind farms at this point? Or this is still in an early stage, but there's proposals to be wind farms?
There's proposals right now to put wind farms out into the Gulf of Maine.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So that would be something that you'd be directly dealing with in your term.
Oh, yeah. They're setting up a lease program. So, again, I haven't read all the details yet, but sometimes under a lease program, you can't get within, 1,000 yards or, half a mile or whatever. That's a big deal.
For the fishing industry, or for other reasons?
First, the fishing industry. And then, I'm all for technology and finding new ways of creating energy. but I don't like it being jammed down our throats. I think I was telling you the other day about the electric buses that we ended up getting at
Yep.
Benefit Saco Old Orchard Beach Transit.
Yep.
Great idea, but they didn't work very well. They cost a lot of money. It was like $1.3 million. And
That wasn't given to you in a grant or anything. That was money out of your budget for those things.
oh no, there was money for grants, but again, that's me and you putting money into the federal government.
Yeah, it's our taxpayer money.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's a lot of money for two buses, right? Was it two buses?
Yeah, it was two buses, $1.3 million a piece.
Oh,
And yeah, and the technology just isn't there. We purchased those buses from what we had analyzed was the best bus company in the United States, and they went bankrupt. It's like, okay, so now what do you do?
No money.
The computer on the bus that spoke to the batteries on the bus, that spoke to the charging unit in our building, that spoke to the power company out at the end of the road. The beginning of it was a nightmare, and you got 4 different companies going like this, pointing to, well, it's your fault. No, it's your fault. It was.
Has that gotten? I know you're not involved with that anymore, but has that gotten better? Do they still have those buses, or has it just been a catastrophe altogether?
So I'll be polite. It's getting better.
Oh.
So what we really needed, there was a $5 million grant that Senator Collins helped get for us to put a remote charger, an overhead charger at the Saco Transportation Center. So one of the things that was happening was we couldn't keep the bus on the road because the power was being used up. So this would allow the bus to go like a couple loops, go under it for 15 minutes and make it through the rest of the day. And just between Saco going through multiple planning people and, multiple people in the town government, it just has been many, many hurdles. I think the city of Saco wanted transit to take over the building. Well, we don't, I wasn't for that. Why would we take over the town's building?
Yeah.
We don't have that. We don't have money in our budget to be doing that kind of stuff. And so to this date, they haven't been installed. And so we still have to kind of balance having the electric bus out with a diesel bus. And
so how do you impact that kind of thing in the state Senate? Is it just urging more caution when it comes to those type of things throughout the whole state, or I guess in your district? Like, how could you have an impact on that sort of stuff in the future?
Yep. So I've reached out to Hannah Pingree, who's in the governor's office. It's just right up her alley, Office of Innovation and stuff. And, it comes across as what's being mandated. California says we're going to have electric cars by 2030. Well, again, great, good goal, but don't stuff it down people's throats. There aren't enough charging stations in the state of Maine. There aren't enough mechanics in the state of Maine. Again, going back to your question earlier about the Center of Technology and that kind of stuff, we need to blend, your engine class with your electrical class, because now they're both in the same vehicle. So we need people like that. They were hiring electrical engineers at some of the big bus companies because, if you had 15 electric vehicles, you needed somebody that knew understood electrical.
A regular mechanic's not going to get the job done at that point.
Nope.
Someone that's been doing it for a long time, it's just used to a way an older vehicle works.
Yeah. So I'm more like, I like to be a fast follower. I don't think we should be rushing out and making Maine people buy electric cars or force transportation companies to go all electric. By the time we solve that problem, hydrogen may be a solution or something else.
Do it all over again. Yeah. I don't hate that approach. So that's good to know. A couple other things. in Maine, and honestly everywhere, housing is an issue. And I don't know that it's one of your main agenda items, but do you have any thoughts on the housing issues that we have here in Maine?
So this is probably going to start touching on a couple of things that I really care about. I think Maine in general needs to shift its attitude. I think that we're really hung up on we're old, we're white, we're poor, we're highly taxed. I mean, you think of something negative, and we've talked about it.
Mhm.
So when it comes to housing, there's a stigma that's associated with housing. Either it's high-end homes that none of us can afford, or low rent, which ends up being talked about as like slums and, crazy cheap apartment buildings that turn into drug centers. I mean, I've heard it all. That's just simply not true. There are some developers out there that, can build us some decent homes, some decent apartment buildings, and make it so that it needs to be walkable to downtown. It needs to, have public transportation. It needs to have all that stuff. And, I personally got frustrated with, there was a big proposal on Lincoln Street. And, there was
Is
a
that not happening
big,
anymore?
I think it got stopped. And,
Yeah, no, that was a big one.
so again, to be a wise guy, I'm like, everybody wants affordable housing, but not in my backyard.
100%. Everyone does.
Yeah.
It is a fact. It
And so,
kills me. In my industry, it's tough. It's tough to see.
yeah. So for me, it's like, okay, if you set parameters and you set, you set expectations and you get a developer in there, yep, traffic is a problem, but traffic's a problem on Route 1 right now. You drive on Main Street Saco all the way to Old Orchard
It's a
at
nightmare.
3 o'clock in the afternoon. It's busy. It's
Don't
not
do
going
it.
to get any
Avoid
better. Yeah, right.
Don't do it.
That developer approached me and talked to me at length about how to put public transportation into that facility. You know the area where the medical center is. It then goes down over a hill and a curve. We were really nervous about trying to pull a big bus out of there without some safety features.
Yeah.
But it's right there. We service Shaw's. We service downtown. It would have been a great place for public transportation. It would have been a great. It would have served our schools. You name it. And oh my God, we need workers. I mean, come on. We need a place for workers to live.
Yeah. No, I wonder how much impact you can have on the state level with the housing piece, if I'm being completely honest, because it does feel like it's a very local thing in each of these different communities. It's hard to say. We'll see how it turns out. But I mean, I love to see the impact that you could have up there and see if there is anything that you can do to improve that, because it's a huge issue for people right now. Cost of housing is insane.
This is, again, I said this was going to open up a whole can of worms, but so this is an area where I think that I fit into more of the traditional Republican conservative side of things, because throwing money at an issue, I mean, if we haven't learned one lesson, throwing money at an issue doesn't fix it. I remember in the fishing industry, the New England delegation got us $5 million in disaster relief. So $5 million in all of New England in the commercial fishing industry was a raindrop in a pond. I mean, it was nothing. And so many of us were like, listen, instead of trying to make all of New England happy, let's take $5 million and go to New Bedford, Massachusetts. It has the biggest fleet, and buy out $5 million worth of fishing power and see what it does. No, we can't do that. We got to get some in Maine, got to get some in New Hampshire. And so we did nothing. So I have always been opposed at throwing money at a problem. And so some of these plans, like, we're going to give, millions of dollars in cash to help you build these facilities. We have tax breaks. We have TIF areas. We have programs that are already in existence. What I personally see happening is it's the hurdles that are put in locally. I remember sitting on the Economic Development Commission in Saco, and a company that had done business with Saco over and over and over again, knew the rules, was going to build a facility in the industrial park, and it got held up because somebody on the group wanted more trees. Like, I'm spending
nothing ever happens.
$3 million to build a building, and you're worried about 3 trees? I mean, come on. That's not something to hold up a project. That's the kind of stuff that drives me crazy.
Yeah. Be nice to cut some of that stuff down a little bit just so people can do business and houses can be built. And, but I guess when you have government, you have all these people, it's hard. You have to have people that can manage those things and negotiate and find middle ground and all that stuff. So like I said, we're a little over a week away from Election Day. What's this last week look like for you?
So I'm finding it difficult because I don't really know what else to do. Part of me is, I think it's a little late to be going door to door. Great to go to Harvest Fest in Saco, football game. Went out to Bonnie Eagle the other night, my granddaughter playing field hockey, interacting with people one-on-one. I have been mailing out a handful of postcards, just encouraging people to vote. Not even vote for me, but get out and vote.
Just get out there, for sure. Yeah.
Using social media. I've done quite a bit of stuff on there. I'm still getting unique endorsements. I posted one today. Paul Barrett, who used to work for the Legends radio station, he's now works for the Woo Sox down in Worcester. And
is he a personal friend, or like how's an endorsement like that come together?
Well, his endorsement was talking about how I embraced them to join the chamber, and it was the best thing they ever did. He made contacts. He was the sales guy. He made contacts. He was able to, work deals to get people on the radio. The radio station was in Sanford, Maine, so it was a local radio station. And mostly he was thanking me. Had it not been for me being at the chamber, they might have never joined.
Yeah. That's very cool to have all those relationships over your years in different businesses and industries and kind of come together and support you now in this endeavor that you have.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate you coming on the podcast. I'm looking forward to getting it out there. Hopefully we can share it, spread the word on your campaign, get some people out there to vote for you in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, I really appreciate it. This was a good opportunity.
Awesome. Thanks, Craig.